Welcome to Talent Buzz, where we talk how SaaS companies do their talent acquisition. I'm your host, Samuli, and in today's episode, I'm talking with Conor McGraynor from HubSpot, and we are digging deep on how HubSpot finds the best possible sales talent for their sales team and what you can steal from their process. And let's kick things off from the recruitment process itself. So how does HubSpot recruitment process look like when finding the best possible talent for their sales team?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I suppose there's a 3-4 step recruitment process here involved at HubSpot. So I suppose there's 2 ways or 3 ways a candidate can come into the process. There is a direct applicant, there would be a referral, or there will be a candidate that we have sourced. So obviously, on LinkedIn or previous applications, we've brought them in. But typically the 3, if not 4 stage process looks this way. So the first step in the process would be a phone call with a recruiter. So someone like myself or one of the other recruiters based in one of the other regions in EMEA. And what you're looking for in that first call with a recruiter is to identify if the candidate or the potential candidate is a fit for what we're looking for. Now, we're looking at a number of different things. We're looking at, core competencies to do the role, but you're also looking at the personality. Will this person fit into the HubSpot culture? Will it fit into the team that we're building out at the moment or, adding to? So will it be a culture add to the team as such as well? So I like to take those calls quite casually. Other recruiters sometimes do take them more as, identifying the candidate's core abilities with some key interview questions. It can depend on the volume that's coming into the given role as such. So that's step 1. If a candidate is, successful in that first stage, we'd look to move them to the second round, which would be bringing them to a manager interview stage. So this is your first opportunity to, I suppose, impress the hiring manager for the team or a member of the sales team. So with the call with the hiring manager, what you're typically looking to do is show your sales expertise. And, are you good at selling, and are you able to meet the requirements for the role that we're looking for? There'll obviously again be a touch on the soft skills and hoping that you can get on very well with the potential manager, but this call is generally jumping in on whether you can do the role or not. If this call can be 2 things, it could be a 30-minute call just to identify the core skills, and if that was the case, we would move the candidate to a role play scenario. It could be an hour-long call, and then at such stage, we may skip the role play. So this is where it's either a 3 or 4 stage. Step 3, if we've done a 30-minute manager call, would then be a role play scenario. So we would give them a mock exercise. The candidate would read through a prep document about a prospective client, and you would do a mock discovery call with one of our current account executives. And, they'll give you some pushback, and then, hopefully at the end, try and, get a demonstration booked in. And then the final round, whether that's the 3rd or the 4th round, is the 2 Zoom video interviews. So this is where you'll meet 2 of the hiring team again. So probably the hiring manager again, and then one other sales manager or sales director. And they'll focus on one interview again on the core attributes of the role, the second being on the softer skills. So in HubSpot, we have this phrase that candidates have heart, which means humble, and emphatic, adaptable, remarkable, transparent. So we're looking for those softer skills and really, really looking to see if, a candidate can fit into the culture as well as the core attributes in the role. So that's kind of the 3-4 step process. Typically, you're looking 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the candidate's availability, depending on the need for the hire. But what's really important is that we give people time to prepare as well for the interviews. The last thing you want to be doing as a prospective candidate is rushing through the phases and not actually reading the prep material provided and understanding what's expected from each stage. So what I'd say is between 2 to 3 weeks usually to run these processes.
Yeah, makes sense. When you walk through those kind of steps, I felt like a lot of stuff you mentioned over there were validating the candidate's experience and knowledge and all that. But as we all know, the kind of recruitment market is getting harder and harder. It is harder to find salespeople than it used to be in the past. Like, how do you combine the validation, but at the same time kind of selling HubSpot in all of these stages? Could you share a bit more about that one?
Yeah, that's very true. And that comes back to the recruiter in the very first round. So me as a recruiter, although I'll be trying to validate the candidate, and also you mentioned, seeing if they're a fit for the role, you're also looking to see if they're coachable. or if they're, adaptable, as I mentioned, the A in heart. Are they adaptable? Have they got transferable skills? Not everybody's going to be the prime finished salesperson, but have they got those kind of coachability and adaptability kind of skill set? Me, I do a lot of selling, and the managers, I've kind of instructed my managers that are working with me that we do need to incorporate 10-15 minutes at the end of the interview to kind of sell HubSpot. I think if businesses are going out there and thinking that everybody wants to just work for them, or if a candidate is on the market, they're just interviewing with them, you do need to have a little bit of sell there. And like, who better than a sales manager or a sales rep? Like, they're sellers of the HubSpot product. They should be able to sell their team and their product. And I think, or, their kind of environment that they've built within their team. So I think that's a really valuable stage. In HubSpot, what I typically sell on is, we've fantastic opportunities about working remotely within a place that we have an entity. I also, sell on some of the fantastic benefits. Like, we've got great, annual leave policies, flexible working options. If you're in Dublin, there's the free food in the canteen, all of those kind of perks as well. But the big thing is the growth in HubSpot. If you're joining a growing company, and I know some other companies that are in this hyper growth stage or in this steady growth stage, the big thing people want to see is they want to see career growth for themselves. So that's a big piece that I'd incorporate into the initial call. And then I'd also be instructing my managers to do a little bit of selling in the last 10-15 minutes as well about their mission or their vision for the team.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, for myself, I know a lot of people from HubSpot who has been working there for a long time. And if I look at their roles, people are really kind of moving forward in their career. I think a lot of people are getting great opportunities over there. So I think that is really a big benefit that a lot of people are looking at the moment. I think kind of one thing that comes to my mind from HubSpot is kind of this growth and the kind of test culture as well. Like, during your time in HubSpot, has your kind of recruitment process been the same, or have you kind of tried new things that, hey, should we have some additional step in the process, or hey, do we really need this stage, or could we do this some other way around?
Yeah, that's fantastic you call that out. We're actually in the moment, we're in a bit of a trial period at reducing. So obviously, reducing time to hire is efficient for both the business, but also efficient for a candidate as well. So we've looked at historical data, and we were starting to look at our pass-through rates. So if you look at, the time, the percentage of candidates that were moving from the manager interview to the role play and from the role play to the final round, we were able to kind of dissect that and see that if candidates were actually impressing the manager with their core sales skills, I think it was over 80% were then passing to role play. So what we've done on a trial basis now at the moment is we've taken out that role play scenario. We've increased the length of time in the manager call. And that's allowed us to do is to shorten in our window of recruitment. So we've gone from that 3-week process to maybe just over 2 weeks, from, initial call to close of the candidate versus, and that's allowed for a more smooth, streamlined process. It's given more time back to our managers, and it's allowed us to take out part of the process that's not necessarily be needed. Now, this is a trial basis. We'll be able to look at the data and see the quality of the hires or the quality of people getting to the final round and reassess. But I think that's where, you have to have that analytical mindset. Although we've hired some fantastic people over the past, my 2 years working here, I'm always looking for ways to make a more efficient or streamlined process, but also looking at the data involved, the performance of the people that you've hired, and see, is there trends or is there anything that we can identify to make it a more smoother process for the candidate, but also allow us to have a more high quality hire into the business as well.
Exactly. You mentioned earlier there that typically you have kind of 3 different sources of candidates. So there are those people who are kind of applying for you, then there are referrals, and then there is kind of the outreach that you guys are doing in LinkedIn and other platforms. I think kind of the applications coming in and outreach, those are something that kind of a lot of companies are doing. And I think the referrals part is the kind of most interesting ones. I think all companies do that, but most likely not in a kind of structured way. So could you share a bit more on that one? Like how you have built the kind of referral program for your recruitments inside of HubSpot?
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, I suppose I mentioned 3 avenues in terms of candidate. That's probably on the external side. I probably failed to mention the internal piece. And the way HubSpot is segmented in our sales team, we have a small business, a mid-market, and a corporate. So we're seeing clear growth curve for our internal candidates as well, which is really good for filling, more difficult roles that we hopefully have that internal candidate. But in terms of referral, I work very closely with our sourcing team. I do a lot of sourcing myself. But what we've started to do is, the ability to refer somebody, as you mentioned, is in the system. Somebody can go into the greenhouse, our applicant tracking system, and refer a candidate, or refer somebody they think. A lot of the time, as you mentioned there, somebody might refer somebody that they're good buddies with or they're friends with, and they mightn't necessarily be a core fit for the role. So there is a series of questions now we have asked our referrers to give about the potential candidate, like, do they meet the attributes we're looking for? Have you worked with this person? Do you know them in a professional or a non-professional capacity? So that we're able to see the quality of our referrals stay strong. You don't want to just, and a big thing with referring as well, can undiversify your team. If you're, referring 3 friends and they're the exact same character, that's actually not building an inclusive culture and an inclusive team frame. So you want to make sure that, you're not just referring somebody because they're your buddy or they're your friend. You want to refer them because they're going to add value or add to the culture or add to the business. So that's a huge piece that we've done within our tracking system. On kind of, as a recruiter and enablement side of things, myself and the sourcer have sat down with the team and within our recruitment team. We've sat down with the sales team. We've got them on a Zoom meeting. So we use Zoom internally in HubSpot. And what we've done is we've shared a couple of Boolean search strings that can be used on the standard LinkedIn. So we're not talking about LinkedIn Recruiter. Anybody, I'm sure you're aware, and a lot of people are aware, you can actually search, Boolean searches within, your own LinkedIn profile. And what we've done there is we've just given a very broad, like, account executive or sales executive and, Nordics. And what we've asked them to do then is search in their own connections. So this is where people have maybe connected or have referred, and they're saying, oh yeah, I forgot about that friend, or I forgot I went to college with this guy, John, or this girl, Mary. And they're suddenly now actually working as an account executive in another tech company or another space. Maybe I could refer them. So we've kind of enabled our salespeople to find their own connections, first connections, second connections, and then ask them to kind of contact them and make the referral that way. So we're kind of enabling our salespeople to be sourcers for the recruitment team. And it's really, really helped. They've added value there, and you'd be surprised the amount of really good kind of connections our sales reps have that they've forgotten about. Oh, I went to college with this girl, or I went to college with that guy, or I did an Erasmus year in Germany with this person. They could be good for our DAC sales team, So really, really good way of enabling your sales team to take the heavy lifting, I suppose, off recruitment as well.
Sounds good. And is there some kind of bonus model, or kind of what gets your salespeople motivated in doing that one rather than only focusing on sales?
Yeah, so there is a referral bonus of $900 for every referral. So it used to be, I think, when HubSpot started, in Dublin, 8-10 years ago, and they really started establishing a presence, there was different tiers of referral bonuses. So if you referred an engineer, it could mean $4,000. If you referred a salesperson, it might be $1,000. And then if it was a entry level role, it might be $500. But now we've standardized it across the business that anybody can refer somebody in. If they get hired, they get $900. Unfortunately, us as recruiters, we can't refer people because that is our job, which is a pity. But at the same time, it does enable the salespeople to kind of be rewarded for helping us out as well.
Yeah, sounds good. But then maybe kind of one interesting thing kind of regarding recruitment is kind of the employer brand and kind of how well known your brand is. And I would say from all the companies that I know, HubSpot has quite a well-known brand. And I can imagine, for example, when you contact people on LinkedIn and then a salesperson sees, hey, it's from HubSpot, there is a higher chance to getting some kind of reply from that person. So what would you say, like, compared to your past different places that you have worked, have you noticed that kind of the brand helps a lot, for example, when doing sourcing, when doing outreach, when doing recruitment and all that?
Yeah, no, I think HubSpot has built a fantastic brand as such, and those orange backgrounds with us holding the sign, or the big smiles. But what I find and what is so exciting about working at HubSpot is that this is so authentic. This is not like you're not being pushed by your manager to post the amazing things that are happening. It's just built within the culture, and I think that comes from our senior leaders within the recruitment space. You've got Katie Burke, the chief people officer. You've got Becky McCullough, the VP for recruiting globally, and then us in EMEA, and on the international side, we've Adele Murray, who has driven, a really good best practices about how great our culture is. But, everybody's posting these things authentically. And that's kind of, I suppose, the end goal for what companies want. But in terms of, having that brand awareness, it's so, so important. I think like social media and these Gen Zs or the next generation that are coming up, they get their source of truth is now social media. And LinkedIn is now a form of social media, whether you like it or not. You do see the kind of, heartwarming stories, the upsetting stories. It's now moved away from just being a job search or a kind of job updates board. There is that kind of personal aspect of people's lives as well, and it is turned into more of a social media piece. But I would be encouraging companies to really look into their company branding, and kind of the way they update their business. I think it's a vital, if the first thing I would do if somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn about a job, would be look at their company page. And if you go into the company page and you see a white empty square without even a logo, and then you start to click in on the people in the business, and they just have founder, CEO, and then no other businesses, and you can't see anything about the company, your natural reaction is to go, oh, that would be a bit risky. It's not really attracting. Whereas if you click in, you see this lovely employer branding, you go onto their business page, you see that they've welcomed 2 new hires and they've done a little bit of a blog post about them. It's not a massive uplift in terms of what's needed from the business, but the amount it can do for attracting those prospective candidates is monumental. And I've definitely seen that, like with reaching out to people. I was lucky enough, I worked at Google before, so I had the same kind of attraction. People like the brand and they like the name. It makes a huge difference when you're reaching out to the passive candidates, for sure. But more and more companies are doing it now, so it's becoming, harder and harder and more competitive. But definitely, if you're a smaller company or an agency or, a business trying to get off the ground, a huge thing to do is to make sure that you've got your branding piece right and you're not forgetting to market yourselves. And that can be very simple as using a free piece of software like LinkedIn and really putting your name out there. You don't need to be paying for sponsored ads. You don't need to be putting sponsored posts up. We're just talking about small little business updates. If you have a social gathering, whether it's hybrid, whether it's, in the office, somebody's come into the office, somebody brought a puppy or a dog to the office, putting up a cute picture of the puppy, or that kind of thing. So you want your employees to be advocates for the business at the end of the day, evangelists as such. Like me, I'm a HubSpot evangelist all the time, and it's by posting authentic posts. It's not that somebody's going, Conor, come on, you need to post again, and on LinkedIn you haven't posted in a month. You'll notice sometimes I post 3 or 4 times in a month, and the next month I won't post at all, because it's the authenticity of what I'm posting is what's important here, and that comes from the top down 100%. So I think company brand is a monumental move that people need to really, really latch onto and grab onto.
Yeah, exactly. And I think kind of, I would say, a mistake a lot of companies do on that one is that they believe that a brand is built overnight. They are thinking like what our employee value proposition should be. Let's work on that one, then publish that one once on our LinkedIn and our career page, and then we are done. But in reality, if you really want to build a brand, employer brand, it takes time, lot of time. And I think what you mentioned there about being authentic, I think that is, for example, something we've tried at Talent B. For example, last Friday, I just did a LinkedIn post about 10 failures that I did as a startup founder. And I think that was like super authentic, a lot of likes, a lot of comments, and kind of really sharing that this is a place we are, rather than being like, hey, everything is perfect within kind of our company.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you don't want this big bank of information, like you said, blog post, pictures, and then somebody goes in, looks at your, Talent B. Oh, great. Oh, they were really active 8 months ago. I wonder what they're doing now for the last 7 months. You got to keep that wheel turning. And I know it can be difficult, but the authenticity is fantastic. Yeah, and I saw the post today. It was really interesting. So some good call outs there as well.
Good. But hey, then I would like to dig a bit deeper on the kind of task phase or the role play that you are doing inside of the kind of HubSpot sales recruitment. That is something actually quite interesting. Before starting my own company, I used to work in a marketing agency called Advanced B2B, and we were partners with HubSpot as well. And actually, last spring, we were hiring a salesperson. And what we did together with our account manager in HubSpot was actually he was running the role play for our candidate. And I saw quite closely like what kind of role play you are using, how you are evaluating that one. And I think that was kind of super interesting. But could you share a bit more kind of what are the traits and the skills that you are kind of assessing during the task and kind of how you ended up using that kind of task? Have you tried different kind of task and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I suppose it's been evolving over the number of years, and the recruitment team has evolved the role play process. And as I mentioned, we're even slightly moving away from it now. But in terms of actually, it's done on a ad hoc basis now. Some managers love the role play element and some don't. It depends on the volume of the role going in and that kind of thing. But I suppose for the role play, yeah, essentially what the candidate is tasked with is they're given a sheet that is a prospective client. I think it's a made up company based in Amsterdam, and they give some criteria about what their budget, their marketing spend, their sales spend, that kind of thing. The goal for the prospective candidate is to kind of discover the pain points, understand what we're looking for, and the goal at the very end to be to set up a demo for next week. You'll get plenty of pushback from the existing account executive. They're doing these calls on a day-to-day basis, but the real thing is to see is how you can navigate it. Probably the least important piece at this point in time is actually the HubSpot knowledge. We'd like you to have a broad knowledge of HubSpot, but at the end of the day, when you join us, you're going to do the sales training. You're going to get a buddy that's going to be assigned to you to help you do really well in your first couple of months. So HubSpot knowledge is not the most important attribute. What we're really looking for is these probably 6 or 7 other attributes that can be assigned. And what we're looking for there is like commitment to win is an important one. So, showing that, not taking no for an answer in some ways, your commitment to win. So when you get that pushback in the role play, or when you're in seat as a rep and maybe somebody pushes back, that your commitment to win is that you can navigate the pushback. It's not being forceful. It's, navigating through that challenge and coming to the right resolution. Another area would be problem solving, and that would probably tie into commitment to win. They're very similar in that way. And it's with problem solving, it's seeing, can you look at things through an analytical lens? Can you see, okay, I've got some pushback here, or there's some issues with the business here. What can I do there? And customer first mentality, that's a really, really important trait that we look at in HubSpot, because we do that consultative selling approach with our prospective companies. So we're not trying to get somebody and sell them a product and then that they've disappeared from our business in a month's time. We're doing this consultative approach that we're solving for the customers to help them grow better. And essentially, at the end of the day, what will happen is you'll have a client that's there and is growing with you alongside HubSpot. And that's why we've done so well in the past couple of years. And we hope to continue to do that because we are the number one CRM platform for scaling companies, and we want to continue to be in that space. Back to the coachability within the role play scenario, you'll probably do the role play for 15-20 minutes. And what will happen then is the existing account executive that's running the role play will actually stop you, will give you some feedback, give you some points that you've maybe missed or action items that you can do. And what they'll ask you to do is to run for 5 or 10 minutes that section of the role play again. And this is try to see, can you take back on feedback? If one of the reps tells you, you need to be more concise in your points, you need to have clearer communication skills, and then you run the role play the second time and you do the same thing again, that's not really showing the coachability attributes that we're looking for there. And so that's really important. Obviously, sales expertise is the overriding piece that we're looking for. We're looking for someone that can navigate all of the different attributes that, being a salesperson is, having that commitment to win, having that problem solving at the end of the day, selling the product and closing the deal. And then something that's looked at throughout the whole process, maybe not just the role play, but even throughout the whole process, is that self-development piece. If there is gaps, if you're somebody who's working, for example, in Jameson, working, in Dubai, selling the product there, and you want to work in a HubSpot role covering the Nordic region, there's obviously going to be a massive gap in your skill set. But showing that self-development piece on, what you're doing to close that gap or bridge that gap is really, really important as well. So that's not just assessed, I suppose, in the role play, it's assessed across the board, but the other pieces in the role play are that kind of commitment to win, problem solving, customer first mentality. And then the coachability aspect as well, which I think is a really interesting piece in our role play, that you actually get actionable feedback instantly. You get to try it again. And that will be a huge part, whether you pass or fail the role play, is in that second attempt with the feedback you've been given by somebody doing the role. Have you taken that on board, and have you got the meeting booked in essentially?
Exactly. One thing that I've been hearing a lot lately is someone saying me that they have failed in a recruitment. They have hired the wrong person. And of course, every now and then, their problem is in their kind of recruitment process. Like they took the wrong person. They didn't really find out the motivation or the skills. But I would say at least the same amount of time, the problem actually isn't the recruitment, it's in the onboarding of the of the salesperson. And I think that is something where you at HubSpot have really kind of invested time and money to build that onboarding process to make sure that people have the best possible chance to succeed in their role. So could you share a bit more on that one? Like what is a typical kind of onboarding for a new sales rep at HubSpot?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I couldn't agree more. I think like you're never going to get the perfect hire every single time, but you can, facilitate, the interview process to find these flaws, like looking at a CV. Is somebody jumping around business to business? Are they on that merry-go-round of tech companies? And is there a rationale? Are they doing it for career growth, or are they doing it because they're failing over and over again? I suppose that's stuff, things that you have to look out for. A lot of the time when people are in interview processes, they're not just in one, they're maybe in five. And when you're in 5 interviews, you can come across very impressive because you're constantly talking about yourself and it's just rolling off the tongue. And so that would be how you can end up. And sometimes you can't stop that. But I think, as you mentioned, the onboarding when somebody is in the business is so crucial then. So you've invested so much money into the recruitment team to hire somebody. You've got the person in the door. Now it's about nurturing them and holding on to them, that you're going to get that ROI in the future. In HubSpot, what we have is when you join us so we have start dates at the start of every month. So it's not a case that you just start on a random Thursday, or you're going to start in a month's time on a random Wednesday. You join with a cohort of people in the EMEA offices that will start on the first Monday of each month. So the next start date, I believe, is in a couple of weeks time at the start of October, and maybe it's at the 3rd of October. That's our next EMEA start date. And what happens is you've got our Dublin-based office that offers a hybrid model. So people can go into the office and do the training there, but it is delivered over this kind of style that we have over Zoom. So people are either based in our Dublin, London, Germany, Belgium, France, Spain, and the Netherlands offices, or based remotely from their home office. And what they're doing is they embark on week 1 is just an intro to HubSpot. So you're learning all about the kind of product, learning about the benefits that are here. I actually host a new hire panel, similar to yourself. Now I'm the hostess with the mostess, as they say. Hosting a panel discussion with a number of people that work in HubSpot, and it's an opportunity for the new hires to ask those questions. It's very lighthearted. It's about Slack groups people can get involved with, ERGs. It's what we're trying to do is to find somebody's home and find the people that they can network with and connect with very quickly in the business, and on that kind of thing. In their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th weeks, you're embarking on HubSpot sales training. So you're doing the certificates that are involved with, hiring that. You're teaching them the processes, the systems, how do we report, how we gather information. It is heavy in terms of, knowledge, but what's great is that in that first month, we're not giving our salespeople a target. They're not expected to jump straight on the phones and start selling. Although everybody's like, yeah, I needed somebody yesterday to join the team. I need another body on the ground. That's the biggest mistake a business can make, is expecting somebody, even if they're coming from a similar company, a similar background, to jump on the phones in their 2nd week and start selling the product. You need a clear onboarding of the product, of the processes, and those best practices will pay off in the long run. I suppose what kind of happens then for our sales reps is they do go into the funnel in their kind of 2nd month. And what they have then from there, it used to be a 6-month ramp up and draw period. It's now a 9-month period. So we've actually increased that out. And why we've done that is to set our reps up for success, so that they don't jump from month 6 to month 7 and have a big jump in, carrying the full quota. So as I'm not sure if everyone's aware, with a ramp and draw period, what you're kind of looking at is that you've had a reduced target, In your first months, you maybe have to close one small deal. You'll be buddied up with one of your senior teams and senior members of the team, and they'll be helping you kind of coax that one across the line. And then you'll slowly, incrementally increase your target. This will allow, this is a really fair and equitable kind of process, and allows people to ramp up slowly. And you also have to be thinking those months ahead, especially in the Nordics. We've got that Nordic summer. Can I close the deals now? Can I hold some deals for those months as well? So, and that's stuff that you'll be outlined and helped with over that 9-month ramp up period. But that's what's really good about HubSpot is we focus on your nurturing and training in the first 4 to 6 weeks. In month 2, then you'll start working very closely with a buddy who will show you kind of shadow calls and assist you with closing the deals, etc. And then you'll slowly start to incrementally close deals yourself and really become, probably month 3, you start to really feel like you're in the business. But then by month 6 to 9, you really know your stuff then and you're in the business, and HubSpot's getting lots out of you then, in the long run. So that's kind of our onboarding, and it's really, really thorough. But what we have to think about is we've got realistic targets for those new hires as well. We're not setting the bar super high in line with our top performers. We're setting the bar to what's reasonable and what people can do, and rewarding them if they overachieve those targets that are reasonable and fair.
Makes sense and sounds good, and I would say kind of reasonable, because like I know a lot of people who are working in sales. I have my background in sales. I know that there are companies where the kind of sales goals are super high from the beginning, and there isn't kind of the understanding of that. It really takes time to build up that pipeline to learn all of those things. And even though within first months it might feel like, hey, I'm not getting any return on my investment on hiring this sales rep, but in the long run, it really makes sense to invest on the onboarding period. Your own job is, of course, kind of 100% recruitment, but then other people inside of the organization, the sales leaders, head of sales, of course, recruitment is a big part of their job, but it's not the kind of only thing that they are focusing. Could you kind of share your best advice on kind of involving those people inside of organization? They are super busy. They have a lot of stuff on their table, not only the recruitment. Like, how do you get all you need from them in order to really create a good candidate experience and make sure that you are hitting your kind of recruitment targets?
Yeah, no, and I have a kind of a catchphrase that I use, and it's kind of like, hiring is everyone's responsibility, not just recruitment's. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about there. Like, without sales managers and sales directors making their calendars available and actually interviewing the candidates and actually being advocates for the business and actually doing that selling, like we talked about earlier in the kind of conversation, that they're selling the business and selling their mission, their goal. And we're not going to close the candidate. We can present all the candidates in the world, all the potential new HubSpotters that may join, but unless we have the buy-in from the wider team, it's going to always be a real struggle. What I've done is, obviously there's twofold, and there's obviously the part where you use your personality and you kind of push yourself into them and you get within their circles. You join some sales meetings. You make yourself aware that, like, I would know that all of the Nordics reps in HubSpot know who I am. Also, the managers know exactly who I am, and the sales director know who I am. And I know if they have any questions about recruitment, that they can come to me. So to be that subject matter expert when it comes to recruitment, if somebody sends in a referral and you're going to reject them, give them actionable feedback. Don't just press a red button on the system and not give that rep feedback. You want people to buy into recruitment as well. So I've used my personality, which I'd like to think I'm a talker. You've probably seen it already. I don't stop talking, but I'd like to use my personality, push it out there. That builds that soft relationship. In terms of functionality, in terms of actually doing the role and getting manager buy-in, what we've recently started to do, and it's been really, really helpful, is to set interview calendar blocks in the hiring manager's calendars. So we're setting aside now times on a Tuesday and on a Thursday morning. So from 9 till 11 on a Tuesday, 9 till 11 on a Thursday. These are interview blocks where their calendar is blocked out and the time is set aside for interviewing. Now, in a 9 to 11 block, they may do 3 or 4 interviews. on a Tuesday and the same on a Thursday. Some managers have given that feedback that they're not great on back-to-back interviews, so they've got a half an hour block in the morning, half an hour in the afternoon. We work very closely with our managers and what suits their kind of styles. But what we try to do is have 4 or 5 hours a week set aside for recruitment interviews. And if the slot isn't taken up, they've got calendar time blocked off. They've got time back to themselves. It's really, really good. And then what we do is on a Friday, we have a withstanding kind of meeting where we talk about the health of the pipeline and if there's any candidates we need to debrief on, or if there's any updates that need to be shared. Again, that's in the calendar. If there's nothing that can't be shared over an email, we take it out, or a Slack message. We take out the meeting. It's there as a placeholder. Same with the interview blocks. As everyone's probably aware, with working in recruitment, it can be a feast or a famine. It can be super, super busy, or it can be very, very quiet. So, to have these calendar blocks in and that things can be super busy and sometimes and very quiet in others, and that you may, and again, that falls back on building a relationship with the manager, that I'm going to have to approach them now coming to the end of this year and be like, hey, we're actually going to have to do a little bit more than just the 4 calendar blocks that we have in. I'm going to need a little buy-in for 2 or 3 weeks here, but having that relationship build with them, they understand as well. So having really good structure, using the calendar as well, but also using your personality and kind of data points to sell your kind of value added to the business as a recruitment team is really, really important there. And it's working very well. And we've always kept our headcount where we need to be in the Nordics, and hopefully that we'll continue to do that. And because of these, clear processes, but also the really good buy-in from the hiring team here.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe one more question regarding the kind of, you mentioned there, like kind of hitting those goals. And I know a lot of companies are doing their recruitment in a still quite kind of ad hoc style that, hey, no, we need a salesperson. Like how long ahead you are planning your recruitments? For example, do you already know what kind of people you need in, let's say, end of next year?
Yeah, so like what we kind of look at there in HubSpot is we have kind of an ideal number that our headcount plan is going to finish at next year. That's kind of a number that we need to get to. So for example, if we're at 11 in one team, they may be sharing that we need to be at 16 next year. And that's not clear and defined, but that's kind of where you're at. So for me now, I'm looking at next year going, okay, maybe I have to hire 3 or 4 people into the business within this team. I'm already pipelining and planning now, speaking to candidates, being very transparent on that very first call. Like, hey, we have an opening coming in December. We have a lot of competition. There's 6 people in the process now. There may be 10 after this week. Chance of you getting this role, 1 in 10 most likely. But what I want to do is I want to rule you in or out for future opportunities. And when that opportunity comes, that I can just knock on the door and be like, hey, Samulai, Alona, Nina, whoever it is, I've got a job for you. Do you want to come and join us now? So pipelining and planning ahead allows you to have that quality in the pipeline all the time. What we're looking at too as well is like they give these numbers on an EMEA wide level, but you also I have to look at Nordics in a different light, because people don't want to join a business in June, July, August, or September in kind of in the Nordic region. They want to kind of join in early in the year, or late at the end of the next year. So for me, I'm going to have to try and front load my hiring. So I'm going to have to speak to the sales ops team and to our recruitment leaders and be like, hey, I have candidates ready. Can we get permission to pull some of these hires forward? So that's the way our lens is kind of looking at it. But what we do have is we've clear numbers for the rest of this year. And we have some kind of stretch numbers for Q1 of next year, and I'm working towards them now. But that allows you to hire the best people, because I'm working towards people. Like there's people I will speak to this week that will join us probably middle to the end of next year, and people think that's maybe crazy, but that's the way. If somebody wants to join the company and that's the way they want to join the company and they're the best fit for what we're doing, the opportunity will come back around when the headcount allows it. So you got to always be planning ahead. If you work on that ad hoc base, like, oh, we need a salesperson, open the job. Oh yeah, we need someone to start at the end of September. Perfect. We'll run a process now over the next 2 weeks. That's not going to allow you to have the best candidate and join your team. It's going to have you the one that's most available and most ready in the next 2 weeks. But that's a little bit of luck as well. That candidate could turn out to be the best person you ever hired, but also, you haven't done an equitable process where you've ran it over a period of time and actually got the best of the best, and been able to. I know we should never compare candidates, but at the end of the day, you have to compare what one person can bring and what another can't bring, and find the best person for your team.
Exactly. Yeah, I believe that one. And for example, like how we have built kind of internally those stuff is that we don't basically do like one-off recruitments, but we really try to build those talent pipelines and really kind of think who are the people we need next year and make sure we are having those discussions kind of going on all the time. So I think that's super good. Lastly, I want to ask you, if you were a SaaS founder, what would be one thing that you would steal from HubSpot recruitment process?
Ooh, that's a good question. This is to help yourself. No, not at all. But I suppose, yeah, if you're starting a business, what will be the one thing be looking to get on a HubSpot level? Like there's so many things that we have, but I think like involving that founder in the process. Like you can be a SaaS founder and you can have a team of 4 people under you and you can delegate and be like, okay, you're the marketing manager, you're the sales manager, you hire that person. Or, oh, I hired a HR person, they can look after the recruitment. If you want to build a culture and build a team with your values and your mission and vision, you got to involve yourself in the process. And HubSpot does that. We involve the directors, we involve the leaders. If there's any candidate we're unsure of, we skip a line of leadership and bring in somebody even more senior to make sure that the values are being had across the business. So as a founder, I would be saying involve yourself in the business in those early doors as you build out your product and your team and your ideas. And as the business grows, make sure that the person that is now your point of contact still has those values and missions and goals that you have as well. And HubSpot has done that, as I've mentioned, to Katie Burks. Everything that she has done is aligned with what Dharmesh and Brian thought of, back in MIT, back in 2000 and whatever it was now, back in the early 2000s. But she's inherited their values and now she's instilled those values on everybody in the business. So I know that everybody within our recruitment team, and the same within the sales team, you've Christian Kinnear, Ed Barrett, the senior leaders, they all have the same goals and visions. So they trust their sales directors. So that will be my thing is to don't lose your identity just because your business is scaling or getting bigger. Make sure you're involving yourself in those new hires and make sure that you're approachable. Like the big thing is like when you join a business here, you feel like you can speak to anyone in the business. Even though it's a 5,000 person company, I could send a message to somebody that's 5 levels my senior and will expect to get a reply. So never have that closed door policy. Because that's what HubSpot doesn't have. And it allows us to hire the best people and bring the best people in and allows us to grow. And why we've experienced such growth is because of that amazing culture that's come from the top down.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of good ideas about SaaS talent acquisition. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it on your social so others can hear it too. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to cover in this podcast, share it with me as well. I'm Samuli, CEO and co-founder in TalentBee, where we help fast-growing SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Make sure to follow us, make sure to follow this podcast, and have an awesome week. Bye-bye.